So here I am with the fabulous, beautiful, and spectacular Ari, who you can find on Instagram at Ari, A-R-I, the, I hope you guys know how to spell the, and hypnotist. I bet you know how to spell hypnotist too. So it's at Ari the hypnotist. I think that in our program, everybody was hypnotized by you, by the handstands that you were doing and just blowing everybody away. There was a little jaw dropping going on in the group watching your posts. Ari, could you talk a little bit about like sort of like how you feel your handstand evolved from like the beginning to the end of the HBR program?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I'm a yoga teacher and I always considered the handstand as kind of the pinnacle of everything. I feel like I could get into every other pose and consistently, but my mythology to get into a handstand was just kind of the luck of the draw. 5 and 7 seconds, but that would be, just a roll of the dice kind of situation. And I really wanted to learn from a pro the mythology of like what I was doing correctly, what I was doing incorrectly, and how to get up every single time, and why I could do all these other inversions and headstand and just everything else, forearm stuff. And for some reason, just as soon as I got on my hands, I couldn't, just everything literally went upside down. It's like I forgot I was on my hands. I lost complete control of my feet. So I wanted a tried and true way that I could, a formula that would help me instead of just like throwing myself into it and maybe getting there.
Right. How do you feel like the structure of the program sort of like helped you? I mean, there was obviously parts where you had to sort of move backwards, so to speak, in your progress and go back to some more foundational stuff. Did that serve you? How did that feel for you? How do you think the pieces all sort of came together by week 8?
Oh, absolutely. I think going backwards and kind of deconstructing everything was very beneficial. Obviously because of the alignment and some of the drills, especially like the shoulder to the stomach to the wall and those kind of drills. I noticed that the more resistance I had to the drill, the more I needed it.
Right.
Because the body's really smart. It can figure out how to like offset balance, but it doesn't mean you consciously know what you're doing. And I think that's kind of what I was doing. It was like, it kind of figured out its way to maybe hold balance, but I had no idea what I was doing. So going backwards, it really taught me, okay, this is like, I have to actually use my shoulders. I was just dumping into my shoulders and it really gave me the knowledge of how to empower myself to make it not only easier, but like do it from a position of strength as opposed to luck and chance. So it was really good to work back a little bit.
Awesome. So, I mean, I try to create basically a linear progression, but at the same time, progress is rarely linear in and of itself. How would you say sort of your experience in the program? Was it linear? Was it like a straight line up? Was it a little up, a little down, a little up? Were there plateaus? Like, how would you say it, like that evolution from like day 1 to day last week, 8? The last week of the program.
So I think it wasn't really linear. I felt like the Q&As and learning from my fellow colleagues, like when you suggested to us, like we should be able to comment on what everyone else is doing correctly and how they can improve. That was probably one of the most valuable tools because you really had to like put your inspector's hat on and deconstruct this as if it's like a actual equation. And so there were days where I didn't feel like I was progressing. And, you know, that was, I think I told you when we started, I'm always pushing myself beyond my edges of where I think I can go. And sometimes for me, the hardest thing is to say, I'm not doing that today. And so instead of doing like 30 drills in a row, it was like, okay, let's work on more of the aspects of like going over the videos and rewinding and kind of watching like the setup again and watching you explain things so I can intellectually kind of like consciously create that activation, even if I'm not doing the posture. So that for me was really big, because a lot of times when I was just going up, I was rushing into it without thinking, okay, I'm consciously activating, I'm consciously pushing down, I'm squeezing, I'm on sectioning, I'm embedding my shoulders. Like those things were not conscious. And I noticed there was a correlation between the times where I didn't mentally think of them before I did them and the times I fell. And then when I actually like took that 5 seconds to notice what I was doing and like correlate it, then it just became something that was easier and easier. So in some ways it was linear, but in other ways it was up and down and maybe 2 steps back or 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I always felt like intellectually I was progressing. I was learning, even if my body was like, it seemed more subtle.
Awesome. Yeah. And as you know, obviously, I'm a big believer that the mindset you bring to the mat into your practice is going to have a tremendous effect on your practice, even not just the belief like what you can or cannot do, but even your perception of what's actually happening in front of you. That sometimes progress may not always appear like progress on the visual plane, but that you can sort of feel it on a deeper plane. Now, you're somebody who's very deep into self-empowerment and also mind state. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel like the mindset work affected your overall success in the program?
Oh, the mindset was everything. Because if you don't have a reason why you're doing something, it's just something else you're doing, right? It's like the reason why I wanted to do handstands was a metaphor for trusting in myself and embodying the qualities that I see in others that I never acknowledged in myself. And so without that reason, it would just be like another sit up or push up or pull up, like something that didn't really have any meaning to me. So it's really like the mental aspect that was the entire reason I did it. Had nothing to do with, I wasn't like, oh, I need to get stronger and show off my, none of that. It had everything to do with, embodying the qualities that I knew I had in myself and that amount of trust. Because it really is trust. When you're upside down, you can get to a point where you're very acutely aware of everything that's going on, but that takes a while to work up to. And a lot of it is trust. And so that reasoning and that part of the program that was about empowering you and your reasons why was, I think, the most important part. Because if you don't have your why does, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really, it's just another exercise to do, and it's so much more than that. So
that's so awesome. So trust in yourself is an interesting concept, because that could take like a lot of different meanings. How would you say that like your work on the mat has increased your trust in yourself, or your confidence or empowerment, or whatever word or combination of words would seem appropriate?
it just taught me that what I saw as difficult and hard was just an illusion, because the amount of time that you think, you see someone doing something crazy that you say is like so advanced, and we put a timetable in our mind is like, oh, I won't be able to do that for years, or whatever. Like if you're just starting and you see, someone do something really gracefully and you're like, okay, I'm starting from this place of, it's just like such a huge step. And that's all a lie. That's all a complete lie. I know it's so cliche, but it's really about the journey. It's just like enjoying the process of those little steps that are subtle and those tiny victories every day, and writing down like the smallest little shift and what you did or something new you discovered, and journaling like how it made you better is so huge. And that's what I learned in this whole process, is that for me, the tiny victories are much greater than the larger ones. The larger ones come like by osmosis, basically. They come because they come naturally, but the small ones I never acknowledged. And it was like I almost made a conscious effort of like, the smaller I thought something was, that I was like a tiny victory, I would write it down. Like even if it were I noticed like I felt a little bit more of the flesh of my right abdominal on my hips, just the smallest little things. Those were so huge to me, because I would have never, like, they all have an effect of coming together to make it effortless.
Right.
And yeah, so I would say that that's my answer.
Okay. Yeah. So, it's often said around yoga circles, right? What you bring to your mat, you bring to your life. I like to believe it also goes in reverse. What you bring to your life, you bring to your mat. How would you, did you set goals, personal goals, while in this program? And did you feel like you took, steps towards achieving them, or certain progress towards maybe a different, more fulfilled, more empowered, whatever it is, life beyond the yoga mat? What kinds of changes have you seen in that direction?
So I work with goals as more like systems, like the same way I've never said like I want to be like 115 pounds. I just set up a system, a daily system of healthy food, healthy cooking, healthy options that make me achieve that. So for me, it was more like creating a system where it was discipline, it was fun, it was something I really enjoyed. And yeah, I guess you would say my goal was to master a handstand. But I always like kind of slashed that, and I had something I'm like, okay, now I'm sticking like a 30-second one. So now I want to master the press. I was like immensely just kind of slashing them as we went along. So it wasn't conscious. I just knew this is where I needed to be. And I knew that like this is a lifelong skill for me. I'm always going to look for ways to get better and master my craft as a teacher. And yeah, I guess my goal was just to become a better teacher and a better practitioner. And that was definitely accomplished.
How do you feel like it made you a better teacher?
Again, I bring up the example of, first of all, the community of girls here is like it's such an amazing community. Like everyone's just rooting each other on, helping each other out. Just like people, we're all learning from each other's like postings, and like how we can help them in any way possible. And it gives you a way of kind of like breaking down what you're doing in your own body by looking at someone else. I learned the most by looking at people like blossom and and others Barbara, and just like noticing, oh, like that is like in that alignment, that's like why she's so strong here, or this is what happens when you move this out. And for some reason, we look at it with more clarity when it's someone else's body than we do ourselves.
Absolutely.
So in that respect, it just taught me how to assist every kind of like body type and person where they're at, and how to talk to people where they're at, whether they're injured, whether they're an experienced teacher, or whether they're someone completely new. There's always a starting point, and we can all like learn together no matter what level you're at. There's just a way to communicate with everyone. And that's what I loved about this group. It didn't matter if you had never done a handstand or you kind of had one. It was just, we were all at the same level with each other. And that was like a huge way to, that was a huge plus for me in that I melted over into my own teaching. So
I love that. Yeah. I really love watching everybody interacting on Facebook and really being able to look critically at each other's processes while still celebrating them and being respectful to where everybody was. And that's always a tenuous balance as a teacher, right? Because you don't want people to feel mitigated when you're like, yeah, but at the same time, there's always a way to say, I believe if there's this, I don't even know if I mentioned it in the course itself, but I think I might have towards the end. There's this guy, Randy Pauch, or Pauch, however he pronounces it. And he did what was called the last lecture on TED. And it was back when TED Talks were super exclusive and, they only had like a handful of people. But one of the things that he said that I have always thought about, and he probably made this 20 years ago, is that when a teacher stops giving you critical feedback, it means they stop believing that you could do better. And that when people tell you, try this, it's them telling you that they have faith that you can do it. And it's true. I think about, because I work with children, it's like, I have to really, really wear kid gloves with children and be careful about like what I say that might hurt them or it might hurt their egos. I'm not going to be nearly as strict with them as I am with adults. And, but, my kids who I have the most faith in are the ones that I know that I can talk to on the level and say, okay, now let's refine this, this, and this. But I'm working with like the littles, I can't even go there. I'll just make them cry. So yeah, it's always great to see how everybody has interacted on Facebook and how willing you, like from day one, before we even started, you're like, and this is what my handstand looks like today. Give me feedback. And the truth is that not everybody is open to that kind of feedback either, right? And that says a lot about you.
Funny because I'm like, I never post. Like if you look at my social media, I'm like not someone that's online ever. So
right.
I'm actually working towards like being more, I'm a complete introvert and I just could care less about posting. But when it's with a small group of people, I feel like that's where I shine more, because it's not like I'm just putting this out to a world of like strangers and stuff. It's more intimate. So I feel like safer to like, these are people that I trust. These are people that are colleagues of mine. So yeah, there's just a feeling of safety and security and that we're all like wanting the best for each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like you were always inspiring everybody from day one. Everybody's like, and that's why I always try to make such a big deal of like, celebrate your own process. Like always have appreciation for what other people are, but they're not you, and don't feel like they're better than you are if they're further along, or worse than you if they're not further along. I love how you put it, like we're all colleagues, we're all on the same path, we're all in this process together. It doesn't mean that when you've got Olympic runners and there's 10 people running the same exact race, but somebody's going to win by 1.4 seconds. They're just going to. It doesn't mean that all 10 of them didn't or haven't run like an amazing race. And it was great to see how generally emboldened I think everybody was.
A perfect example is like some people, it's way easier to do like the middle splits. I can't do the middle splits. It's like we all have our strengths and our places that we want to improve, but there's a lot of things my body can't do that yours can, and maybe vice versa. So, but who cares? We can still get the same goal.
Exactly. Do you feel like you accomplished your goal that you had coming into the program?
Definitely. I feel like I have a stable 45-second handstand on both legs.
Amazing.
And I'm almost to my scorpion. I'm like this close. But more than that, it was about the process, and it was really like teaching myself like something I thought like in only 2 months to go from where I started to where I finished, where like the biggest improvement for me was just the amount of effortlessness. And I was in a place where it was just fun more than anything. It just felt like fun. Didn't feel like something I was like efforting so hard at. It was just like a beautiful, graceful expression. And that's like, I didn't even know I wanted that, but that's what I wanted. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I love that so much. And it's funny because I say that all the time. It's like the people who are the most stressed out over the process are the people who are probably going to have the least success in the process, because when you approach something as fun as something you want to do, your mind is actually working in your favor. But when you have to fight over against your own mind to even try, that really has a tendency to hold you back. And with me, I've said a million times, not just in your program, but all over the internet. It's like I started nailing my handstands, for example, and I stopped caring about nailing my handstands and just appreciated the process. So can I ask about how many minutes, hours, whatever a day did you find yourself practicing? Now, if you want to break that down into like general practice, I know you said you're doing a half hour forward bending plus handstand practice, or like what would be your typical daily or weekly practice schedule?
So I do my own kind of like creative yoga sequencing, which is sometimes you're full Monty, they're not all full of the whole full thing. I do about the first 45 minutes and then I feel a little warm. So I feel really warm from that. And then I do my own kind of like handstand creative sequencing. And I put on my favorite music. And I mean, I just like zone out. It's like I'm in hypnosis. So it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything, but I'll look at the phone and I'll like leave an hour kind of set aside, and it'll be like an hour and 45. So
oh my goodness.
Sometimes it's like that, and then other times I'll just do my practice in the morning, and then throughout the day, if I teach class and stuff, I'll be like, I have 20 minutes, and so I'll just go do some drills. I'll just use this 20 minutes. I'll go to the park. I'll do it. What I like to do is I like to practice on different surfaces. So surfaces that I probably shouldn't practice on. I want to like be comfortable everywhere. So I'll be in the park, or I'll be, on the grass or in the sand, whatever, just to kind of get that diversity. And for me, it's something exhilarating and something fun. So it's not like I'm setting out like it's a stopwatch and this is like a chore. This is like something, if I'm out, when I was on my family vacation, when I was in the middle of your routine, we would literally be somewhere on like a dirty street and I would go upside down.
And I also saw you with what, your nieces, nephews, cousins, what?
Yeah, I was like just doing them everywhere. Whenever I had to wait for an elevator, I would like just go upside down.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Anytime that was like my rule. Whenever I had to wait for someone like to get their car or by an elevator, I would just practice my handstand. So I was definitely doing them a lot.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny because you're like, yeah, I hardly practice on social media, but here I am in front of an elevator practicing handstand.
Like I can either wait 25 seconds doing nothing or get in at least 3 handstands.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Okay, so you're saying that right now you're basically consistent at 45 seconds. Now, is that vertical? Is that like Hanuman? Is it combination? Hanuman.
That's a Hanuman.
Yeah,
30 seconds regular, definitely
nice.
consistently. But the Hanuman definitely you can hold it a little longer.
Right, right.
Sure. And I'm pretty consistent with, I just had surgery, so I can't put a lot of stress on my shoulders with the pressing. But before that, I was having a pretty consistent press. So I want to master my pike press, and I'm really gonna ask you to help coach me through the crow toe tap press up is what I have my eyes on.